She had 1 second to choose: bleed out in the storm-drenched alley or burst into the one place she knew she shouldn't be. Serena Vance chose the light. She stumbled through the gilded doors of Il Corvo d'Oro, the most exclusive and dangerous restaurant in the city, clutching the bloody ruin of her side. The music stopped. The clinking of wine glasses ceased. Every eye, cold and calculating, fixed on her. She collapsed onto the marble floor, looking up into the face of the only man who mattered, the owner, Alessandro Castellano. He knelt, his obsidian eyes void of pity, and demanded, "Who shot you?" The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling, bulletproof windows of Il Corvo d'Oro. It was a violent, percussive sound, but inside, the only things one could hear were the quiet murmur of the city's elite and the mournful strains of a single cello. The Golden Raven was not a restaurant. It was a fortress of neutrality, a sanctuary of power, and its king sat in his usual booth in the back, shadowed and elevated, just enough to see every entrance. Alessandro Castellano didn't look at the spreadsheets his consigliere, Marco, had placed before him. He was listening to the rain. He hated messes. He hated chaos. His entire life, the legacy of the Castellano family, was built on one principle: absolute control. His restaurant, his territory, his business, all ran with the silent, lethal precision of a well-oiled firearm. "The Petrovic shipments are moving through the docks again," Marco said, his voice a low, respectful rasp. "They're getting bold, Capo." Alessandro traced the rim of his water glass, his dark eyes fixed on the deluge outside. "Boldness is just stupidity with a different suit. Let Dmitri Petrovich have his trinkets. He knows where the line is. And if he crosses it..." Before Alessandro could answer, the heavy, oak and gold doors of the restaurant burst open. It wasn't a gust of wind. It was a person. The cello stopped. The murmuring died. A woman, soaked to the bone in a trench coat that was now plastered to her body, staggered into the foyer. She was clutching her left side, and the hand pressed there was slick with a dark, viscous liquid that dripped onto the pristine, white and gold marble. Alessandro's bodyguards, Nico and Sal, moved instantly. They were trained to neutralize threats, and this woman, gasping, bleeding, and bringing the chaos of the outside world into their sanctuary, was the definition of a threat. "No one in? No one out," Alessandro said, his voice calm, yet it cut through the silence like a razor. His men didn't stop the woman. They locked the doors behind her. The woman stumbled forward, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and agonizing pain. She looked ordinary. That's what bothered Alessandro the most. She wasn't one of theirs. She wasn't a rival. She was a civilian bleeding from a gunshot wound. In his restaurant, this was a mess. She made it 10 feet before her legs gave out. She pitched forward, her hands flying from her wound in a futile attempt to break her fall. But she didn't hit the floor. Alessandro was there. He had moved with a speed that defied his bespoke, 3-piece suit. He caught her, one arm hooking under her shoulder, the other instinctively going to the wound to apply pressure. Her blood, hot and sticky, soaked his cuff. He felt a sharp, internal spike of cold fury. She was light, trembling like a leaf. Her head lolled back, and he got his first good look at her face. It was pale, streaked with rain and mascara, but it was strong. A sharp jaw, a defiant brow, and eyes, even half-lidded with pain, that were the color of a storm-tossed sea. She gasped, her fingers weakly grabbing the lapel of his jacket. "Please, here." Alessandro ignored her plea. His focus was singular. This was an insult. A shooting this close to his front door meant one of two things. The shooter was sloppy, or they were sending a message. He didn't care which. He leaned in, his voice a low, dangerous growl that was meant for her and her alone. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't ask her name. He asked the only question that mattered. "Who shot you?" The woman's eyes fluttered. She tried to focus on his face, to form a word. But the shock, the blood loss, and the sudden, terrifying safety of his arms were too much. Her eyes rolled back, and she went limp. Alessandro held her for a moment, the silence in the room so absolute it was deafening. He looked at the blood on his hand, then at the pale face of the woman who had brought this chaos to his door. He looked up at his consigliere. "Marco, get Dr. Russo. Bring him up to the penthouse. Use the service elevator." He then looked at Nico, his most trusted bodyguard. "Lock this place down. My guests are to be compensated for their evening and sent home. Quietly. Check the security feeds for every alley within 6 blocks. Find the shell casings. Find the shooter." Nico nodded, already moving. Alessandro adjusted his grip, lifting the unconscious woman into his arms as if she weighed nothing. He carried her past the shocked stares of his clientele, past the bar, and toward a discreet, private elevator hidden behind a panel of dark mahogany. The guests would be terrified, but they would also be silent. They knew the rules of Il Corvo d'Oro. What happens here stays here, or you answer to Alessandro Castellano. As the elevator doors slid shut, sealing him inside with the bleeding woman, he looked down at her again. A strand of wet, dark hair had fallen across her cheek. He resisted the urge to brush it away. He was not a savior. He was a businessman. And this woman, whoever she was, had just become a very complicated, very bloody liability, or perhaps an opportunity. Serena Vance woke up to the smell of antiseptic and old leather. Her first sensation was a dull, throbbing fire in her side. Her second was the disorienting softness of the bed she was in. This wasn't her apartment. This wasn't a hospital. Her eyes snapped open. She was in a bedroom so large it felt more like a grand hall, decorated in dark woods, charcoals, and deep blues. A massive, unlit fireplace dominated one wall. Through a wall of glass, the skyline of the city glittered, the storm having finally passed. She tried to sit up and hissed, a sharp, stabbing pain reminding her of the wound. She looked down. She was wearing a simple, black silk pajama shirt that was clearly not hers. Her side was heavily and expertly bandaged. "I wouldn't move. I had to repair a tear in your abdominal wall. You were lucky. An inch to the left, and it would have perforated your spleen." Serena's head snapped toward the voice. A man in a rumpled suit, who looked more like a tired butcher than a doctor, was sitting in a leather armchair in the corner, sipping from a small glass of amber liquid. He had greying hair, weary eyes, and hands stained with what she prayed was iodine. "Where am I?" she whispered, her throat raw. "You're in the penthouse above Il Corvo d'Oro," the man said, not unkindly. "You're the guest of Mr. Castellano. I'm Dr. Russo. And before you ask, no, I'm not a licensed practitioner, not anymore. But I'm the best you'll get when you've been shot by a .38 caliber. Il Corvo d'Oro. Castellano." Serena's blood ran cold, a chill far deeper than the rain had caused. Alessandro Castellano. She knew that name. Every journalist in the city knew that name. He was the head of the Castellano crime family. Not a brute, the papers said, but a businessman. He owned shipping, construction, and, it was whispered, every politician north of the river. And she was in his home, in his clothes. The heavy bedroom door opened, and he walked in. Alessandro Castellano was even more imposing than he had been in the restaurant. He had changed out of his blood-stained suit into a simple black turtleneck and dark trousers. He looked less like a restaurateur and more like a panther. He dismissed the doctor with a short, sharp nod. Dr. Russo gathered his bag. "She'll live. She needs rest, antibiotics, and no sudden movements. I'll be back tomorrow to check the sutures." He left, and the lock clicked shut behind him. Alessandro didn't approach the bed. He stood by the window, his back to her, looking out at the city he owned. "Serena Vance," he said. His voice was a smooth baritone, but it carried an edge that made the hair on her arms stand up. "Investigative journalist for the City Tribune. You've been making quite a name for yourself. You write aggressive articles." She pulled the silk sheets higher. "How do you know who I am?" He turned slowly. In his hand was her wallet, her press badge dangling from it. "It was in your coat, along with this." He held up a small, professional-grade audio recorder. "And this, a USB flash drive, which he dangled from his fingers." "You went through my things," she stated, trying to inject venom into her voice, but it only came out as a tremor. "I went through my evidence," he corrected. "You stumbled into my place of business, bleeding from a gunshot wound, causing panic and costing me a great deal of money in reimbursed dinners. I have a right to know why." He walked closer, stopping at the foot of the massive bed. He felt like a judge. "So, I'll ask you again, Serena Vance. Who shot you?" Serena's mind raced. She was a journalist. She'd been investigating Councilman Thompson, a politician everyone thought was a reformer. But she'd found a link, a dark, filthy money link, between Thompson and a shadowy import-export company. She'd followed a lead to a meeting at the docks tonight. It was supposed to be her source, a whistleblower. It was a trap. They hadn't tried to warn her off. They'd tried to kill her. She'd been hit, scrambled over a fence, and just ran, block after block in the blinding rain, until she saw the lights of his restaurant. I can't," she stammered. "You can't," he repeated, his voice dangerously soft. "Or you won't? It's my story. I have to protect my sources." Alessandro laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Your sources? You were bleeding out in an alley. You have no story. You have no anything except what I'm giving you. You're in my home. My doctor saved your life. You are breathing my air." He sat on the edge of the bed. She recoiled, but the movement sent a jolt of agony through her side. He didn't touch her. "Let me rephrase," he said, leaning closer. "You've been digging into Councilman Thompson. Thompson is dirty. Everyone knows it, but no one can prove it. But Thompson isn't a killer. He's a coward. He's a puppet. The hand inside that puppet, however, that's a different story." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The imports, the money laundering, the men you saw at the docks tonight, they weren't Thompson's, they were Petrovich's." Serena's eyes widened. Dmitri Petrovich, the Balkan Syndicate, far more violent, far more chaotic than the old-school Castellano family. "You were shot," Alessandro continued, his gaze intense, "by a Petrovich soldier. On my territory. You ran from them, and you brought their mess to my doorstep. This now involves me." I didn't know where else to go," she admitted, hating the weakness in her voice. "You ran to the only light you saw. It just happened to be my light." He stood up, satisfied. He had his confirmation. "You're a loose end, Miss Vance. Dmitri Petrovich does not do loose ends. As far as he knows, you're dead in an alley. But his men are not sloppy. They will be looking for a body. When they don't find one, they will start looking for you." He walked to the door. What are you going to do?" she asked, a new, colder fear dawning. Alessandro looked back, his face an unreadable mask of cold courtesy. Dr. Russo was right. You need to rest. You'll be safe here. No one knows this penthouse exists. Safe? You're keeping me prisoner. I am offering you sanctuary, he replied, the word sounding like a sentence. The price of that sanctuary is simple. You will tell me everything you have on Thompson and Petrovich. Every name, every date, everything on that drive. And if I refuse? Alessandro's lips curled into a smile that held no warmth at all. Then I'll have Nico dress you in a fresh coat, walk you back to the alley where you were shot, and leave you there. You'll have your story all to yourself. For the 10 minutes you have left before Petrovich's men find you. He opened the door. Sleep on it, giornalista. You'll find you only have one choice. The next 3 days were a masterclass in psychological torture. Serena was a prisoner, but a prisoner in a cage of silk and cashmere. The penthouse was magnificent, a sprawling, 3-story marvel of modern architecture and old-world wealth, all concealed atop the 1920s-era building that housed Il Corvo d'Oro. She had the run of the place, but her world was defined by 2 unmoving constants, a locked elevator, and Nico. Nico, Alessandro's head of security, was a monolith in a dark suit. He wasn't unkind, but he was utterly impassive. He brought her meals prepared by the restaurant's 5-star chef. He brought her books from the penthouse's library. He brought her fresh clothes, simple, expensive, and clearly chosen by a man, which she hated wearing. He never spoke unless she asked a direct question, and his answers were never more than 3 words. Can I leave? No, signorina. Can I use a phone? No, signorina. Is he going to kill me? The capo does as he wishes. Dr. Russo came and went, checking her stitches, changing her bandage, and tut-tutting about her refusal to eat. He's keeping you alive, girl. The least you could do is participate. Alessandro himself was a ghost. She heard him sometimes, late at night. The hum of the private elevator, a low murmur of voices from a study 2 floors below. But he never came to see her. He was letting her stew. He was letting her heal just enough to feel the 4 walls closing in. He was letting her imagine, in vivid detail, what Dmitri Petrovich's men would do to her if they found her. Serena was not a wilting flower. She was an investigative journalist. She'd faced down corrupt unions and sleazy politicians, but this was different. This wasn't about public or record. This was about survival. On the 4th night, she finally gave in. Not to him, but to her own hunger. Nico had delivered a tray of agnolotti in a sage butter sauce and a glass of deep red wine. She ate every bite. She drank the wine. She felt warmth return to her body, and with it, a cold, hard spike of anger. She would not be a pawn. She waited. At 1:15 a.m., she heard the elevator. She heard his footsteps, heavy and tired. She heard the clink of glass as he poured himself a drink in the study below. Her wound ached, but she swung her legs out of bed. She was still weak, but her fury was a crutch. She walked out of the bedroom, down the floating spiral staircase, her bare feet silent on the cold marble. He was in his study, a room walled in glass that overlooked the city. He was standing in front of the window, his back to her, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He was in his shirt sleeves, his tie loosened. "You're awake," he said, without turning. "You knew I was coming. I knew you were healing." He turned, his eyes sweeping over her. She was wearing his silk pajamas, her hair was a mess, and her face was pale, but her eyes were on fire. He preferred this to the terrified victim he'd carried. "You're hungry, you're angry, you're ready to make a deal." "I want to know what you get," she said, clutching the railing for support. "I give you my research, my life's work. What's in it for you?" Alessandro took a sip of his whiskey. Dmitri Petrovich is a plague. He deals in filth, human trafficking, hard synthetics. He brings a level of chaotic, public violence that is bad for my business. He's a rabid dog, and I've been waiting for the leverage to put him down. And Councilman Thompson? Thompson is the dog's leash. He's been rezoning dockland properties, giving Petrovich's import companies free rein, bypassing Castellano shipping channels. He's costing me money. So this is just a turf war, Serena said, a bitter taste in her mouth. I'm just a bullet point in your hostile takeover. You're a catalyst, he corrected, walking toward her. You, Miss Vance, are the one person who has found the string that connects the puppet to the master. You have the proof. He gestured to the flash drive, which was sitting on his immaculate desk. I've had my tech team trying to crack that. Your encryption is impressive. It's biometrically locked to my thumbprint, she said, a small, proud smirk on her face. His eyes lit up with a dangerous appreciation. Smart. Very smart. He stopped just a few feet from her. The air crackled. He was all power, shadow, and the faint, expensive scent of whiskey and cedar. Here is my offer, he said, his voice dropping. It's no longer a request. You unlock that drive. You give my people everything. In return, I do two things. You protect me, she offered. Protection is a given. You are in my house. You are under my name. As long as you are here, God himself couldn't get to you. He held up one finger. One. I will eliminate Dmitri Petrovich. Not just his operation. Him. I will ensure that the man who ordered your death is put in the ground. Her breath hitched. Two, he continued, his gaze unwavering. I will not only destroy him, I will give you your story. I will feed you the information to destroy Councilman Thompson. I will burn that corrupt politician's life to ash and let you be the one to light the match. You will be the most famous, most feared journalist in this city. Serena stared at him. It was a deal with the devil. He wasn't just offering her safety. He was offering her revenge and success. He understood her. He saw her ambition, the dark, driving part of her that wanted the truth, no matter the cost. Why? She whispered. Why give me the story? Why not just take the information and have one of your own tame reporters print it? Alessandro took a step closer. He was so close now, she could feel the heat radiating from his body. He lifted a hand, and his fingers brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. His touch was electric, and she flinched, but she didn't pull away. Because Petrovich and Thompson made a mess on my doorstep, he murmured, his thumb brushing her jawline. And I always make my enemies pay. But you? You're different. You're not one of them. You're not one of me. You have fire. I want to see what you do with it. He was tempting her. He was corrupting her. And the most terrifying part? She was tempted. And when it's over, she asked. What happens to me then? Alessandro's eyes darkened, becoming possessive. We'll see. First, you prove your loyalty. Give me the drive. He held out his hand. Serena looked at his outstretched hand, then at his face. This was it. The moment she crossed the line, the moment she stopped being a victim and became an accomplice. Slowly, her body aching, she walked to the desk. She picked up the flash drive. He watched her every move. She turned, held it up, and pressed her thumb to the sensor. A tiny green light blinked. She placed the drive in his open palm, his fingers closed around it. Good choice, he said. Nico will bring you breakfast. My tech team will have this decrypted in an hour. By tomorrow night, the war begins. The penthouse transformed overnight. The quiet, sterile luxury was replaced by a low, humming thrum of activity. Alessandro's tech team. Two young men with unnervingly fast fingers and dead eyes set up a command center in the study. Marco, the consigliere, was now a permanent fixture, his face grim as he and Alessandro mapped out networks on a giant wall-mounted screen. Serena was relegated to the library, a prisoner again, but this time a prisoner who had given up her only bargaining chip. She felt naked, useless. She had handed over years of research, and now she was just waiting. Nico was still posted outside her door. "What are they doing?" she asked him, standing in the doorway. Nico, for the first time, looked at her with something other than indifference. It might have been a flicker of respect. "They are planning. The capo does not move without a perfect plan. And I'm just supposed to sit here?" "You are being protected, Signorina. The hornet's nest has been kicked." "What does that mean?" Before Nico could answer, Alessandro's voice echoed from the study. "Serena, in here." She walked into the command center. The screens were filled with her data, but cross-referenced with dozens of other databases. Shipping manifests, bank accounts, police patrol routes. "My team is good," Alessandro said, pointing to a name on the screen. "But your data confirmed the linchpin. It's not just Thompson, it's his chief of staff, a man named Gregory Steiner. He's the one laundering the money. He's the one who handles the logistics for Petrovich's special imports." "The trafficking," Serena said, her stomach turning. "Yes." Alessandro's face was stone. "Petrovich brings them in. Steiner files them as displaced refugees, and Thompson's city contracts house them in slum properties before they disappear. They're moving a shipment tonight." Serena felt a wave of nausea. "Tonight? We have to call the police. We have to stop it." Marco scoffed. "The police? Girl, the police are on Thompson's payroll. You call them and you're just tipping them off." "Then what are you going to do?" Serena demanded, looking at Alessandro. "We are going to intercept," Alessandro said. "My men will hit the convoy. We'll secure the shipment and deal with Petrovich's soldiers. And the people? The victims? I have a clinic. Doctors. They will be cared for, quietly. Then they will be given passage, real passage, to somewhere safe, far from here." Serena looked at him, stunned. This wasn't in the Mafia playbook, she knew. "I told you, giornalista," he said, seeing the look on her face. "I don't deal in filth. The Castellano family builds. We don't trade in human souls. That is a line we do not cross." He turned to Nico. "You're with me. Sal stays here. Lock this penthouse down. No one in, no one out. Serena does not leave this floor." "What? You're leaving me here?" Serena said, an unexpected spike of panic hitting her. Alessandro paused, buttoning his suit jacket. He looked, for all the world, like a CEO heading to a board meeting, not a Mafia boss heading to war. "My fight is not your fight. Your job is done. Stay here. Stay safe." "Wait," she said, grabbing his arm. The contact was electric. His muscle tensed under her grip. Everyone in the room, Marco, Nico, the tech boys, froze. No one touched the capo. Alessandro looked down at her hand on his sleeve, then up to her eyes. "Be careful," she whispered. His expression didn't change, but his eyes softened for a fraction of a second. He covered her hand with his, squeezed it once, and then removed it from his arm. "Lock the doors," he ordered, and was gone. The penthouse was silent again, but this time it was a suffocating, heavy silence. Serena paced the library. She was no longer a journalist. She was a woman waiting for a man to come back from a war she had started. Hours passed. She tried to read, but the words swam. She tried to sleep, but her heart was pounding. Around 3 a.m., The sound of the private elevator whirring to life made her jump. Sal, the other bodyguard, moved to the door, weapon drawn. The doors opened. It was Nico, and he was helping a limping, cursing Alessandro. Serena rushed forward. "What happened? Are you hurt?" Alessandro waved her off, his face pale and tight with pain. He had a bloody makeshift bandage wrapped around his left forearm. It was a setup. "Petrovich knew?" Serena asked, her heart sinking. "He knew someone was coming." "Not who?" Alessandro growled, slumping into a chair as Nico ripped open a medical kit. The shipment was a decoy, a trap, full of his soldiers. Nico started cleaning the wound. It was a deep graze. A bullet had torn through the muscle. "We lost 2 men," Alessandro said, his voice quiet and lethal. He stared into the empty fireplace. "They died because we walked into a trap. And there is only one way Petrovich could have known we were moving tonight." Serena felt the blood drain from her face. "What are you saying? Me? You think I tipped him off?" Alessandro finally looked at her. His eyes were cold, and the brief warmth she'd seen earlier was gone, replaced by the Arctic chill of the capo. "You're the only new variable, Miss Vance. You give me your drive, and less than 12 hours later, my men are walking into an ambush." "No," Serena said, shaking her head, tears of panic and fury welling. "No. Why would I? He tried to kill me. I gave you the data to stop him." "Loyalty is a funny thing," Marco said, stepping out of the shadows. He'd been silent until now. "She's a journalist. Maybe she wanted a bigger story. The fall of 2 families. Maybe she called her cop friends." "I didn't!" Serena screamed. "I swear on my life, Alessandro, I didn't." Alessandro stared at her, his gaze drilling into her. He was searching for the lie. She was trapped, her one protector, now her accuser. Nico finished the bandage, pulling it tight. Alessandro winced. "I didn't," she whispered again, tears tracking down her face. "I want him dead. Just like you." Alessandro was silent for a long, agonizing minute. He looked from her desperate, tear-streaked face to his consigliere's cold, impassive one. "No," Alessandro said finally. "She's not lying." Marco looked surprised. "Capo, how can you be sure?" "Because if she were lying, she'd be better at it," Alessandro said, his voice flat. "She's terrified. She's angry. A traitor would be calm." He stood up, testing his arm. "She's clean, which means the leak is internal." His eyes swept the room, and for the first time, Marco and the tech team flinched. The king was wounded, and now he suspected his own court. "Find it," he ordered Marco. "Tear apart our communications. Find the rat who warned them. I don't care who it is. I want their head." He turned back to Serena, who was trembling in relief. He stepped close, lifting a hand to her face. He didn't touch her. "You are safe," he said. "But the rules have changed. Petrovich knows I'm coming for him, and he knows I have his loose end." He tapped her temple. "You're not just a journalist anymore. You're the one thing he wants, and the one thing I'm not going to let him have." "What does that mean?" "It means you don't leave my side, not for a second." The next week was a blur of high-stakes tension. Alessandro was a man possessed. He moved Serena out of the guest room and into the master suite with him. "This room has one entrance," he stated flatly, as Nico and Sal moved her things, "and I'll be in it. The leak is still in this building. Until I find it, you are my shadow." Serena's protests died in her throat. It wasn't a suggestion. Living with him was disorienting. She saw the man, not just the capo. She saw him wake before dawn, his injured arm stiff, and spend 30 minutes in silent, pained physiotherapy. She saw him on the phone, not just threatening men, but arranging for the widow of one of the men who died in the ambush ensuring her mortgage was paid and her children's college was funded. She will want for nothing, Marco. Nothing, or you'll answer to me. He was ruthless. Yes, he was a killer. But he operated by a code she was beginning to understand. It was a dark, bloody, feudal code, but it was a code nonetheless. One night, she woke from a nightmare. She was back in the alley. The rain, the gunshot, the feeling of her own blood. She sat up, gasping, her hand flying to her side. The wound was healing, but the scar would be permanent. Alessandro, who had been working on his laptop in an armchair by the window, was at her side in an instant. "You're safe," he said, his voice rough with lack of sleep. "You're here. You're safe." "I can't get it out of my head," she whispered, her hands shaking. The sound of the gun. He sat on the edge of the bed. He didn't offer platitudes. He didn't coo. He simply stated a fact. The first time is the hardest. The first time you realize the world is not what you thought, that there are no good guys. "Not really. Is that what you believe?" she asked, looking at him. In the moonlight, his face was less a mask of power and more a map of burdens. "I believe in my family," he said. "I believe in my name. And I believe that to protect those things, you must be willing to do what others will not. You must be willing to become the monster that keeps the other monsters at bay." He looked at his bandaged arm. Petrovich is a monster without a code. He enjoys the chaos. He enjoys the filth. And that is why he must be removed. He reached out, and this time his touch was hesitant. He brushed the hair from her damp forehead. "You have seen the filth, Serena. You tried to fight it with a pen. But a pen cannot stop a bullet." "And you can?" "I am the bullet," he replied. A strange, terrifying intimacy bloomed in the dark. She was living with a man who had killed, who would kill again. And yet, in that moment, she had never felt safer. She was a journalist who'd lost her objective truth. He was a capo who had just shown a crack in his armor. She leaned into his touch, just slightly. A silent acknowledgement. His eyes searched hers, and he saw her fear, her confusion, and her strength. He saw the woman who had walked into his study and demanded a deal, not the girl who had bled on his floor. He leaned in, and she knew he was going to kiss her. Her heart hammered. This was wrong. It was Stockholm Syndrome. It was inevitable. The kiss was not gentle. It was hard, possessive, and desperate. It was a claim. It tasted of whiskey and control, and a deep, aching loneliness she suddenly recognized because she felt it too. It was the collision of two worlds, and in that moment, she didn't want to pull away. She kissed him back, her fingers tangling in his shirt, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had dissolved around her. He pulled back first, his breathing heavy. His eyes were black with an emotion she couldn't name. "Alessandro," she breathed. "This," he said, his voice raw, "changes nothing, and it changes everything. When this is over, you will have a choice to make. A choice. To run as fast as you can from this life, or to stay." Before she could answer, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. A single text. He looked at it, and his entire demeanor shifted. The lover was gone. The capo was back. "What is it?" Serena asked. "The rat," Alessandro said, his voice pure ice. "We found him, and the final piece of your puzzle." He stood up. "Gregory Steiner, Thompson's chief of staff. My team just dug up a very interesting wire transfer from a holding company, owned by my consigliere." Serena's blood turned to ice. "Marco? Marco is the leak?" "He's more than the leak," Alessandro said, strapping a fresh weapon to his ankle. He's the partner. He wasn't just leaking to Petrovich. He was Petrovic's in. Marco was going to let Petrovich cripple me, and then, in the chaos, he and Steiner would take over the shipping lanes, cutting both Petrovich and me out. "But the ambush," Serena stammered. "He was with you. He sent us into a trap he helped set. He was playing both sides. He underestimated Petrovich, and he underestimated me. He wanted me wounded, weakened, not dead. Not yet. He wanted to be the loyal consigliere who saved the family after the capo failed. It was a staggering betrayal." "Where is he?" Serena asked. "He just called a meeting. With Steiner. At the old shipyard," Alessandro said, shrugging on his jacket. "He thinks he's going to tie up a loose end. He doesn't know I'm the loose end he should be worried about." "You're going alone? Alessandro, that's suicide!" "I'm not going alone." He hit a button on his intercom. "Nico, it's time. Bring the car." He turned to Serena. "You wanted the story, giornalista? You wanted to see how it ends? You're coming with me." "What?" "You're the safest person in the city, right by my side, and you're the only one I trust in this building. Get dressed. Wear dark colors." The black sedan cut through the fog-shrouded streets of the industrial district. There was no sound but the engine's purr. Alessandro drove, his movements economical and precise. Serena sat in the passenger seat, her heart feeling like a trapped bird. In the back, Nico sat silently, a tactical shotgun resting across his lap. "This is insane," Serena whispered, looking at the decaying warehouses passing by. "This is how people die in movies." "This is not a movie, Serena," Alessandro said, his eyes scanning every shadow. "This is pest control. Marco is my family. He was my father's right hand. This is not business. This is an execution." The casual, cold way he said it sent a shiver through her. The man who had kissed her with such desperate passion was gone, replaced by this instrument of vengeance. "Why bring me?" she asked again. "Because you are my proof," he said. "Marco thinks you're a civilian, a weakness. He doesn't know you're my weapon. He thinks he's meeting Steiner to finalize their plan. He has no idea I'm coming to his funeral." He pulled the car into a dark alley, killing the engine and the lights. The shipyard was a graveyard of rusted cranes and hollowed-out containers. "Nico, you know the plan. Overwatch. No one gets out." "Yes, Capo," Nico said. He opened his door and melted into the shadows, disappearing like a ghost. Alessandro turned to Serena. He grabbed a small earpiece from the console and handed it to her. "Put this in. It's connected to Nico and to the recorder in my pocket. Whatever happens, you stay in this car. You lock the doors. If you hear anything other than my voice telling you it's clear, you drive." "Do you understand me? Drive? Drive where?" "Away, as fast as you can. Nico will find you, but do not get out of the car." He unholstered his weapon, checking the clip. "Alessandro, wait." He paused, his hand on the door. You said you were the bullet. Bullets don't get a choice. You do. Don't become the monster he is." His eyes met hers in the darkness. "It's too late for that, cara mia. Lock the door." He was gone. Serena locked the doors, her hands shaking. She put the earpiece in. She heard nothing but static, then the faint sound of wind. She watched Alessandro walk into the shipyard. He wasn't sneaking. He was walking, his shoulders back, like he was walking into his own restaurant. Inside a vast, cavernous warehouse, Marco and Gregory Steiner were standing over a table. "The shipment is confirmed," Steiner was saying, his voice reedy and nervous. "Petrovich will be at the secondary location at midnight. He's bringing the girls." "Good," Marco's voice rumbled. "And Castellano?" "He's licking his wounds. He's paranoid. He trusts no one. He's locked himself in his penthouse with that journalist bitch. He's neutralized. Your family is yours, Marco." "It always was," Marco said. "My father built it. Alessandro's father just took the credit." "A pleasure doing business," Steiner said, extending a hand. "Not yet." Serena heard a click. "What? What are you doing, Marco?" Steiner asked, his voice suddenly high-pitched. "Tying up loose ends," Marco said. "You talk too much, Gregory. And you're the only one left who knows I was involved with Petrovich. No, wait, we have a deal. The deal is off." "Stop!" Serena screamed, forgetting she was in the car, but her voice was drowned out by a sound that came from the earpiece and from the warehouse, a single, echoing gunshot. Serena clamped her hand over her mouth. "That was messy, Marco," Alessandro's voice said, echoing in the warehouse. Serena heard a gasp, then the sound of Marco scrambling, his own gun being drawn. "Alessandro, Capo, thank God. This bastard, Steiner. He was the leak. He pulled a gun. I had to." "Save it," Alessandro said. He was calm. "You were always a terrible liar, Marco. My father knew it too. He kept you close because you were predictable." "What are you talking about? I'm your loyal—" "You set up the ambush. You cost me 2 men. You've been in bed with Petrovich and this politician for months. You are going to kill Steiner, then feed Petrovich to me, and play the hero who saved the family from the man who crippled it. It was a good plan. Almost." There was a long silence. "So," Marco said, his voice dropping, "it comes to this. After all these years, you, the boy king, against me." "It's always been this," Alessandro said. "You just didn't have the courage to make the move until now." Serena listened, her entire body rigid with terror. "And the girl?" Marco sneered. "Petrovich wants her. He's paying a fortune for her. Give her to me, Alessandro. We can still make a deal. We can blame it all on Steiner." "She's not part of any deal. She's family." "Then you'll die with her," Marco roared. A volley of gunshots exploded. Serena screamed. She couldn't tell who was shooting. The earpiece was a cacophony of gunfire and shouting. "Nico!" Alessandro yelled. A different sound. A boom. The heavy crack of Nico's shotgun from a high position. Then silence. Just the drip, drip, drip of water from the rusted ceiling. Serena was sobbing, her hands over her ears. "Alessandro! Alessandro!" Static. Then his voice, ragged. "It's done. Alessandro!" she cried into the void. "Clear. Warehouse is clear." "Nico, are you—" "I'm fine, Capo." Nico's voice came over the earpiece. "Target is neutralized. Marco is down." Serena's legs felt like water. She fumbled with the door lock, adrenaline surging. She ignored his order. She got out of the car and ran. She burst through the warehouse doors and stopped. Gregory Steiner was dead near the table. Across the vast expanse, Marco was slumped against a container, his face a mask of surprise. Dead. And Alessandro was standing in the middle of it all, his gun hanging at his side. He was breathing heavily, but he was untouched. He saw her, and his face hardened. "I told you to stay in the car. I thought you were—" "You don't think!" he roared, striding toward her. He grabbed her by the shoulders, his grip bruising. "In my world, you listen. You obey, or you die. Do you understand me?" She was too shocked to speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. His fury evaporated as quickly as it came. He saw her terror. He pulled her against his chest, his hand tangling in her hair, holding her head against his shoulder, as if to shield her from the sight of what he'd done. "It's over," he whispered, his voice rough. "The betrayal is over." She clutched his jacket, smelling the gunpowder and the faint scent of his cologne. "What now?" "Now," he said, his voice turning to steel. We finished the job. Marco was just a symptom. Petrovich is the disease, and I'm the cure. The meeting is still on, Alessandro said, his voice quiet as they drove away from the shipyard, leaving Nico to clean up. Serena, still in shock, just stared at him. What? How? Steiner is dead. Marco is dead. Petrovich doesn't know that, Alessandro explained, his cold calm returning. He was checking his phone. Steiner was just the middleman. Petrovich is meeting the supplier at midnight. He's expecting a politician's chief of staff. He's not expecting me. You can't, Serena said. He'll have an army with him. He's expecting a shipment of people, Alessandro. He'll be guarded. He'll be exposed, Alessandro corrected. He thinks I'm at home, paranoid and wounded. He thinks Marco is his partner. He's arrogant, and arrogance is where I make my living. So what's the plan? You're going to walk in and challenge him? No, Alessandro said, a dark, dangerous smile touching his lips. You are. Or rather, your story is. He pulled the car over 2 blocks from the final location, a supposedly abandoned fish processing plant on the darkest edge of the docks. My men are in place. They have been since Marco's text. This whole warehouse was just a detour. He turned to her, his face serious in the green glow of the dashboard lights. Serena, I need you to do what you do best. I need you to be a journalist, a very specific kind of journalist. What are you talking about? He handed her a burner phone. The police are on their way, the real police. She stared at him. You called the cops? No, you did. An anonymous tip. You told them that Councilman Thompson and Dmitri Petrovich were conducting a massive human trafficking operation at this address. You gave them names, dates, shipping container numbers. How? Your drive, he said, tapping his temple. It wasn't just data. It was a map. I just had to decide which route to take. I'm choosing the one that burns everyone. But your men? You'll be caught in the crossfire. The police are slow, Kara. They will get here. But not before I'm finished. I just need them to handle the cleanup. I need them to arrest Petrovich, to arrest Thompson when Petrovich sings. I need this to be public, messy, and undeniable. I need your story to be the one they tell. You're using me to call the police? That's your grand plan? That's half the plan. The police will catch the soldiers. I am going for the king. He got out of the car. What about me? She yelled, following him. You stay here, you watch, and you write, he said. This is the story you were bleeding for. Go get it. He didn't wait for a reply. He walked toward the processing plant, disappearing into the fog. He was one man, walking into a hornet's nest. Serena sat in the car, her heart pounding. She heard the first distant shout, then a gunshot, then a cacophony. The war had begun. She watched, helpless, as muzzle flashes lit up the windows of the plant. It was a war zone. Then she heard the sirens, far away but closing fast. He's trapping them, she realized. He's using the police as his anvil, and his men are the hammer. A man burst out of the side door. He was big, wearing a heavy coat, and he was running, clutching a briefcase. It was Dmitri Petrovich. He was running from the fight, running from the sirens. He sprinted down the pier toward a sleek, black speedboat, tied at the end. But someone was waiting for him. Alessandro. He stepped out from behind a stack of lobster traps, blocking Petrovich's path. The 2 men stood silhouetted against the dark, churning water. Serena couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw Petrovich drop the briefcase and raise his hands. He was trying to negotiate. Alessandro didn't move. Petrovich made a sudden lunge, pulling a hidden weapon from his ankle. He was fast, but Alessandro was faster. 2 shots, so close together they sounded like one. Pop, pop. Petrovich froze. He looked down at his chest, then up at Alessandro, his face a mask of disbelief. He crumpled to the ground. Alessandro stood over him for a moment. He kicked the gun away from Petrovich's hand. Then he picked up the briefcase. The sirens were deafening now. Police cars swarmed the front of the processing plant. Officers piled out, guns drawn, shouting. Alessandro didn't run. He didn't hide. He simply walked back down the pier, briefcase in hand. He walked past the firefight, past the shouting cops, and got into the passenger seat of his car. He tossed the briefcase into Serena's lap. "It's done," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. Serena stared at him, then at the briefcase. "What? What's in it?" "Their entire operation, hard drives, ledgers, bank codes, everything you need to link Petrovich, Steiner, and Thompson to every crime they've committed for the last 5 years. You're just giving it to me?" "I told you I would," he said. He looked at the chaos unfolding in his rearview mirror. The police were cuffing Petrovich's men. The shipment of victims was being led out, safe. "You get your story, giornalista, the biggest one of your life." "And you," she whispered, "what do you get?" Alessandro Castellano looked at her, his eyes dark and unreadable. The monster who had just executed a man on a pier was gone, replaced by someone else. "I get peace," he said. "My territory is clean. The betrayal is purged." He started the car. "Now let's get you home. You have a story to write." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. Alessandro didn't take Serena to the penthouse. He took her to a secure, high-end hotel suite. "No one will look for you here," he'd said. "Write your story. When you're done, call this number. Someone will get it to your editor. Be a ghost." For 2 days, Serena didn't sleep. Fueled by adrenaline, she poured everything onto the encrypted laptop he'd provided. The data from the briefcase, her original research, it was all there. All the names, all the connections, almost all. She left one name out. His. The story, attributed to an anonymous source, hit the Tribune like a bomb. Councilman Thompson was arrested mid-press conference. The city's corrupt machine choked on the scandal. Serena Vance was declared a hero, a lion of journalism, who was recovering in a secure location. From her hotel window, Serena watched the city she'd upended. She had won. She had gotten her story. But she felt empty. She had told the truth. But by omitting Alessandro, she was no longer an objective journalist. She was an accessory. She was his. That night, a private elevator she didn't even know existed opened. Alessandro stepped out. He was in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his arm no longer in a sling. He looked like he was on his way to the opera. "An incredible story," he said, his voice light. "They're calling you a hero." "I'm a liar," Serena said, turning from the window. "I left you out." "You left out the context," he corrected. "You told the truth that mattered. Thompson is gone. Petrovich's empire is ash. The how is irrelevant." He walked toward her, stopping a foot away. "I told you that you would have a choice, to run or to stay." "Can I run?" she asked. "After what I know, after what I've done." "I would never stop you," he said, and she believed him. "You are free to go. You can go back to your old life. Be the hero. But it will be lonely." "And if I stay," she whispered. "Then you are no longer a journalist," he said, his voice low. "You are no longer an observer. You are mine. You will live in my world. You will be protected. You will have everything. But you will have to accept what I am." "A monster," she said. "A king," he replied. "And kings must make difficult decisions." as you just did, when you omitted my name from your truthful story." He was right. She had already made her choice the moment she'd protected him. "My old life is gone," she said, the realization settling on her like a shroud. "It ended the second you caught me." "It ended," he murmured, and a new one began. He held out his hand. "Il Corvo d'Oro reopens tonight. I am celebrating. I want you by my side." Serena looked at his outstretched hand. It was the same hand that had pressed against her wound, the same hand that had held a gun. She knew what this meant. To take it was to step out of the light of her old life and into the permanent, luxurious shadow of his. "They'll be looking for me," she said. "The media. They will be told you are recovering, that you are unavailable. In time, they will forget the reporter, and they will only know the story." Slowly she put her hand in his. His grip was warm and strong and absolute. "Good," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face as he pulled her gently toward the elevator. "I've already had your things moved to the penthouse. I find I dislike sleeping alone." He paused, his dark eyes searching hers. "One last thing, Serena." "What?" "When you stumbled into my restaurant, you looked at me. Why did you run to me?" Serena thought for a moment. "I don't know," she said honestly. I knew you were the only one in that room, the only one in the city who wasn't afraid of the monsters." Alessandro's smile widened. "No," he said, pulling her into the elevator, the doors sliding shut, sealing them in. "I'm the one they're afraid of." The story isn't over. Serena Vance traded her pen for a crown, but living as a queen in a Mafia boss's kingdom is its own kind of war. She has power, she has protection,